When you have a product idea, all too often the knee-jerk reaction is to do everything you can to build a prototype. But after 3 previously successfully funded Kickstarter campaigns, I've learned, in some cases the hard way, that there are 3 key considerations to hammer out before going into the exciting prototype phase. And in this video, I'd love to share them with you. Welcome to Get It Together, and if you're new here, this channel is just me trying to figure out how to get my life together and sharing the tips and lessons I learned along the way. And as you may know, this month's challenge I've issued myself is to work with my buddy Eric on conceptualizing and creating a product-based Kickstarter campaign in about 30 days. This is episode 2 of the How to Kickstarter series, and if you haven't, I welcome you to watch episode 1, which I'll link right over here, where I challenge you to truly evaluate your idea in a systemized way. And as usual, there are section timestamps in the description below, so feel free to hop around as you see fit. But let's dive right in, and as you heard in the intro, Eric and I have learned a lot from our previous campaigns, and now know that there are 3 core considerations to clearly think and plan through from the very beginning, before spending the time and resources to even prototype your idea. They are 1, eventual shipping and logistics, 2, the number of manufacturing operations, and 3, respecting and knowing your own time commitments. Kicking things off with 1, eventual shipping and logistics. With our first campaign over 5 years ago, we created the puzzle coaster, a set of 4 stainless steel puzzle pieces that served as individual drink coasters, or when assembled together, could support, like a casserole dish or a serving plate. This, by all accounts, was already quite a small product, and best of all, because of its durability, could just be shipped in a bubble mailer without the added bulk of a separate cardboard box and air bubble protectors and all that kind of stuff. But they were heavy. With the linen bag, literature, bubble mailer, and shipping label, we were at nearly 2 pounds each. We learned the hard way that shipping from Canada, where we are, to anywhere in the world, including within Canada, at this weight was literally 3 to 4 times more expensive than what we assumed. We calculated initially by just size, and with Canada Post having the highest rates globally, we ended up paying out of pocket to get these to our backers. And honestly, that's a polite way of saying, at the end of the day, we lost money on the project. But with specific regards to shipping and logistics, it is vital for you to know how much it'll cost you to ship all over the world. This will both mentally prepare you, but also help you inform your pricing and cost viability. The real cost of shipping the puzzle coaster in more than half of the destinations literally costed more than what we charged for the puzzle coaster itself. No exaggeration. And so, of course, psychologically, from the perspective of the backer, if the product costs, let's say, $30, but they get surprised with a shipping cost of $40, how many do you think will actually go through with backing and ordering the project? There are ways around this. For example, baking part of the cost for shipping into the product itself. Like, for example, charging $60 for the product and making shipping $10. But that's just not something Eric and I wanted to do. At the time, it felt kind of sleazy to us, and maybe we're still naive, but what we decided to do instead was to ensure that every future product we create be less than 1 pound in weight, including packaging, and that the dimensions can still fit in a standard small to medium-sized bubble mailer. Not necessarily applicable to you and your product idea, but quite easy for us since we create items in the everyday carry and everyday use categories. Regardless of what your product idea is though, research and know without a shadow of a doubt exactly how much shipping is going to cost you and how you want to handle the implications of that cost with what you charge for your project itself as well as for shipping. The second thing to be crystal clear about prior to even prototyping are thinking through the individual manufacturing steps involved. Every human hand, every machine, every box, every truck to go from raw materials to a final product adds a non-insignificant cost. Take our Aristo razor. Once we got the stainless steel into the workshop, the machining tolerances were so precise that the cycle time per part on the milling machine was tremendously long. And in order to maintain those tight tolerances, we had to replace cutting tools much more often. We're talking consistent precision to better than 2/1000ths of an inch in critical areas. Like, take an inch, divide it by 1,000, and we maintain the precision to within 2 of those microscopic units. And then after they were out of the machine, they had sharp edges still that had to be removed, so we first loaded them into a tumbler with smooth rocks to shake them for a few hours, and then individually loaded them into this homemade jig and used these KitchenAid stand mixers to drag finish the metal parts 4 at a time for 6 hours through crushed walnut shells to both polish the stainless steel to a mirror finish while ensuring the ridiculously tight tolerances were still maintained. And how could we be sure those measurements were maintained? Well, after drag finishing, we individually tested each one to validate blade mounting fitment before sending them to the mad scientist to fuse the colored coatings. then getting them back and verifying quality, and then having to fold the packaging boxes by hand, applying a colorway sticker, loading the literature, packaging it into a bubble mailer, completing, printing, and applying the shipping labels, holy crap, then loading into one of our cars before dropping them off at the post office. Let's count that. That's material procurement, cutting to base billet sizes, machining the anvil, machining the retainer, machining the handle, batch tumbling to deburr the sharp edges, drag finishing for 5 or 6 hours, just 4 at a time, testing fitment and tolerances, loading them into protective foam trays, dropping them off to our surface treater, picking them up, inspecting them, assembling, packaging, filling packaging, creating and affixing stickers and shipping labels before heading off to the post office to truly be able to say that a job was done for each. That's 17 individual steps per razor, from raw material to a happy Kickstarter backer. This is all to say that when you're considering your own product, you may have a dream of having something that blends hardware and software, uses some plastic, some metal, some acrylic, some wood, and offers customization. But I welcome you to first think of the minimum viable product, the version that has the least individual manufacturing steps that'll still be attractive to your target customer, before branching outwards in materials, operations, and features. Since again, each separate human hand, machine, and truck your product needs to touch increases your production costs, and more importantly, the time you need to spend on tracking, communicating, and doing quality assurance for each of these individual steps. By the way, you may be thinking to yourself, man, Eric and Maurice, they are so lucky to have access to all of these manufacturing machines. And you're right. I have to agree, Eric and I have the perfect blend for each other of diverse skill sets and tools to culminate ideas into reality. But for this current Kickstarter project we're working on, and staying true to the core promise of this series of radical transparency to you, we have decided to not use our own machines, but instead find contract manufacturers to create our prototypes so you and us can experience creating a product from scratch and launching a Kickstarter campaign how most people would experience it. In no uncertain terms, we will not be using our own machines, but instead be finding vendors and suppliers just like most of you would, and we'll be sharing the costs and quotes we get in the next few Sunday uploads. So be sure to hit subscribe and of course that bell notification so you'll be notified. The third and final thing to consider pre-prototype is your time commitment for your product. And honestly, I'm not just talking about the abstract measures of time while you're working towards a successful crowdfunding campaign, but more importantly, the ongoing time commitment, from manufacturing to shipping to after-sales support. The vital point is that as creators who are excited to see an idea come to life, we are way too good at devaluing our own time, and just as bad, underestimating the time spent in the first place. With our most recent project, the Spec D&T, I did a time capture experiment of how long just creating shipping labels would be. After logging into Kickstarter, loading the backers surveys page, I started the count. And from copying the shipping info, to pasting it into the shipping portal, to addressing issues like postal zip code discrepancies, to paying and printing, then marking as done in the spreadsheet, to making sure the quantity for the order is correct, applying the shipping label, then placing the package into the appropriate box between USA, Canada, Europe, Africa, Mideast, Asia, and Australia, the average end-to-end of each package was just over a minute. So if you have 1,000 backers, that's 1,000 minutes, which is 17 hours. 17 hours of consistent, non-stop, zero breaks, perfect workflow of creating shipping labels alone. And this is the best case scenario since they're all batched together. Imagine once your Kickstarter campaign is done and 1 or 2 people buy from your website a day. That's an added individual trip to the post office every single day. I mean, how much time does that drive take? Best case, even if you live walking distance from the post office, that's at least 20 minutes every single day your website gets in order. You need to plan for this time and anchor a dollar value to it so you don't end up paying out of pocket. And this example was just for shipping. What about inspections? What about responding to customer emails when they blame you for postal system delays? What about one of your supplier's critical staff being on vacation? What about folding and stuffing an instruction manual into each individual shipping package? Fact. You will have many more responsibilities than you think you will before you create your Kickstarter campaign page, before you even have a prototype, and all the various 10 seconds here, 10 minutes there add up and must be built into the cost of the product itself, because how else will you be compensated for this tremendous amount of time you're going to have to be spending, especially if your crowdfunding campaign is successful. By the way, I tell you all of this not to discourage you. While you're in the thick of it, it's exhilarating, exciting, and I genuinely believe you'll enjoy the entire process. But all the excitement and fulfillment won't hold much weight if you discover that you're making less than minimum wage at the end of the day, or even worse, discover you've lost money and are paying out of pocket. Remember, as exciting as creating a prototype and thinking about the campaign messaging is, please, please spend the time to think about these 3 considerations that we discovered in this video. This month is going to be a whirlwind. We've never gone from ideation through to full execution and launch of a campaign in such a short amount of time, but that's the whole point of this challenge, and I'm really, really happy you're here to see the entire radically transparent behind the scenes. If you're catching some value, please hit that like button, and if you're getting lots of value, don't forget to hit subscribe and that notification bell so you'll get notified as soon as I upload the upcoming videos in this series. And if you enjoyed watching this right here, I think you'll definitely like this video right over here. But as usual, thanks for kicking it with me, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.